everybody. Welcome again to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. Friends, we all know Australia is absolutely world-class when it comes to any type of mineral exploration and production. We truly have it here. But what we also have, friends, is human capital. We have absolutely world-class geologists, metals people, and not only that, we've taken this human capital to projects all over the world. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because we have with us Damien Koerber of Equus Mining. And Damien is exploring and going to go to production, hopefully, in South America, specifically in Chile. And for those of you that are not quite so familiar with that region, it also is an absolutely world-class exploration area. I believe that in terms of gold, they've produced over the years over 1.3 million ounces of gold. It is now hovering near $2,000 an ounce, by the way. Anyway, enough with that introduction. Damien Koerber, Equus Mining, welcome to 18 Minutes with 180 Markets.
Yeah, thanks very much, Greg. Happy to be here.
Great. Hey, Damien, everybody's got a story. Everybody invests into people. What's your story?
Okay. Australian geologist that worked 5 years in Australia before heading over to Latin America in 1994. I was based in Chile from 1994 to 2019 and performed roles including exploration, geologist, business development manager for a number of both senior or large blue chip gold companies and juniors. Largely my experience spanned Argentina, Chile, Brazil and Peru, but most of my time is really in this mineral province that we're exploring at the moment, which spans both Chile and Argentina, the Deseado Massive.
Incredible. And I think that that's incredibly critical for this audience to realize is that you have spent 20 years plus in that region. This is not a foreign territory to you, not even remotely, so to speak.
Absolutely, Greg. And, you know, it's obviously important to have in-country knowledge, in-country contacts. You know, I'm managing this out of Australia at the moment, obviously, but, you know, I do calls every morning with Chile, understand exactly what's going on. I've built an incredibly motivated and experienced exploration team at Cerro Bayo.
That's right. And speaking of Cerro Bayo, can you tell our audience a little bit more about that region and what just makes it so special?
So the region is part of a large mineral province called the Deseado Massive, and that contains 7 operating mines with cumulative past production and remaining resources of about 30 million ounces of gold equivalent, run by the majors including Newmont, Hochschild, Yamana, Pan American Silver. So we're within this region, but importantly in Chile, which comes with far fewer issues as far as getting things in production and operating costs. There is no hyperinflation issues in Chile. Chile has a fantastic educated mining focused workforce, as you say.
Right. And I think that, again, that's very important for our audience to understand. So you're, number one, there is a lot of talent on the ground, number one, and number two, you know how to access that talent.
Absolutely, for sure.
And can you just tell us a little bit more than drilling deeper, no pun intended, about your project and what has attracted you to it?
Okay, so I've actually been involved in this area since about 2004 within Chile, exploring both around the Cerro Bayo mine and visiting it a lot. We did a deal last year, October last year, which gave Equus the option to acquire all of the Cerro Bayo project off Mandalay Resources for essentially 19% equity in Equus, paying a royalty, 2.25% royalty on future production from the mine, which is we can buy back, and covering half of the future closing costs, which equates to about $7 million. What attracted us to this project is it's a large area, 295 square kilometers, with over 100 epithermal veins mapped over its history of exploration. So this mine actually commenced production in 1995. It was originally owned by Freeport, was sold to Koerber put it into production in 1995. Koerber Mining actually, they had this mine from 95 to about 2010. They had some incredible years of production. You know, we're talking over 100,000 ounces per year on average between 2002 and 2008. Mandalay Resources bought that mine in 2010 and it put it into care and maintenance in 2017. What we see as the difference between us and the previous operators was that we have a better capacity to focus on exploration. We feel like it was very much a mining operation previously, and they certainly had their mining mentality when they were looking at the potential of this large area.
Right. So I guess in my mind, said another way, this is not underexplored area. This is more kind of rehashing what's already been there, so to speak. And perhaps maybe, can you also discuss in say the last 20 years, has the technology improved to the point where, you know, it's reasonable to say there could be some hidden gems, so to speak?
Absolutely. So the previous explorers were obviously exploring the district under very different metals prices. So that obviously had influenced their interpretation of, you know, what certain grades meant. And back then in the mid 90s, early 2000s, the understanding of epithermal deposits was really in its infancy. And a number of major epithermal deposits were found in the mid 2000s, basically applying new principles of identifying where you are in the epithermal system, not necessarily paying attention too much on the grade of veining at surface, but where they thought they were in the system to be able to target where the metals actually precipitated out. And that's what we're very good at. As I said, this is a very large project area, over 100 epithermal veins that were previously mapped. We feel like there's a huge amount of underexplored or completely unexplored veining on the property.
Interesting, interesting. And I suppose, you know, given it's such a huge area, what would be the next steps for you? Because obviously you can go on for 10 years, but there has to be something tomorrow, so to speak.
For sure, Greg. What we're applying is basic principles of good geology, good mapping, good sampling, the application of sort of Landsat alteration mapping, some geophysics, but in this particular terrain, it has a limited ability. But we really are just going back to good geology. That's the large part of our thesis, is we're very good geologists. Field principles, mapping, sampling, and paying attention to what you're seeing on the ground.
Right. And Damien, this is also, from what we can gather, this is not a 10-year till your first production type of project. Could you talk about what would, in your in a base case timeline from where you are today till production?
So as far as putting an exact date on, Greg, that's obviously you know, not able at the moment. But we have a very clear pathway to essentially our greenfields exploration is currently going. We announced that we were starting drilling at the end of last month, which we have. We're currently drilling one of our very high potential drought master projects. We also have a brownfields exploration campaign planned to start within about a month on some areas very close to existing mines and existing infrastructure. And in parallel with that, it's sort of a two-pronged approach. We're actually in the process of a resource calculation on what was previously exploited as an open pit. It's called the Tatau open pit. We feel like there's a lot of potential underneath this pit that was left by the previous operators. This pit was previously mined up until about 2001, when gold and silver were about a fifth of their current prices. In parallel with that, we have a consultant, a Chile-based consultant, Jerry Perkins, who is working with Exeter on Kospici. He's looking at a mine restart study. So it's a high-level mine restart study, and we're looking to have that by midway the first quarter of next year. The Tatau resource study we're looking to have by the end of October of this year. So we're moving our exploration in parallel with our updated resource calculations on what resources are actually there at the moment, and also with the restart study in mind. By this time next year, or a little bit later, December of 2021, we want to be in a position to be able to decide whether to execute this option.
It sounds like there's so many upside optionalities, if you will. As an investor, I would say you just need to get a couple of them to go your way, so to speak. And also, can you just talk about in that location the general infrastructure nearby?
So, Chile Chico is the nearest township to the property. It's about 10 kilometers from the center of the 300 or 295 square kilometer package. That's where the entire workforce was based. It's a lovely little town. It's got all the services that you need. And historically, this mine over the last 25 years, over 19 years, that mine was in production, and the logistical routes and the and what was needed to produce and transport the concentrate are in place. So historically, that concentrate was basically trucked from the mine, directly from the flotation plant all the way to the Pacific coast, and there it was put on containers to go to Korea and Japan. And it's worth pointing out that that was a very sought after concentrate. It was a very clean concentrate, highly sought after by the smelters. So all that infrastructure and logistics is essentially turnkey. And trust me, there's a lot of people waiting for us to get back up and running. Just to go back to the commencement of production, Greg, it's worth pointing out that Mandalay is actually going to be starting to reprocess some of the low-grade stockpiles that have been there since the late 90s. And there's a considerable resource. There's about 6 to 7 million tons of material there, running about a gram gold equivalent. They know the recoveries on that are about 75% silver, 80% for gold. At current prices, it makes a good margin. So, and their reprocessing of these stockpiles will commence the beginning of next year. So as far as our restart, we're going to have a lot of good data about how the plant's functioning. We're going to be building up our brownfields and greenfields resources. We'll have the mine restart study in parallel with our new resource at Tatal.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing again. And Damien, and also just hearing what Mandalay is doing, does that give you some type of look-through confidence that what Equus is going to achieve in the next, call it a few years will happen?
Absolutely. I mean, we have quite a lot of confidence, Greg, on the performance of the plant. We're reviewing and we've reviewed the performance of the plant over the 19 years of production. Historically, it was plus 92% silver recoveries, plus 90% gold recovery. So a level of confidence is high, but this is going to give us an extra insight into how this plant operates with lower grades. And these stockpiles historically have been processed by Koerber Mining as well. So, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're going to do some good exploration, good geology, discover more resources, and have a fantastic resource base to put through that plant.
Yeah, and can I just ask, when you said the lower grades, and bear in mind, unfortunately, we are not geologists, and a lot of our audience is not. Can you just explain in maybe like a layman's terms what has to be done to process that grade?
So essentially, this is a flotation system. So we're dealing with a gold and silver concentrate. So essentially, you mine it either open pit, which will be the case of Tatal, and you can also blend that with underground material, which is generally higher grade. The grade that was mined historically was about 6.5 grams gold equivalent. Roughly, the contribution was half gold, half silver. So you basically mine that, grind it up to quite a fine grain size, mix that with your reagents, which are essentially detergent, which gives the froth and allows the flotation of the product. So there's no cyanide, there's no dubious chemicals that we have to use, and that concentrate is then filter pressed, put on a truck, and shipped straight to the smelters in Japan and South Korea.
So there's a very easy path here. It's
a very easy path, absolutely. The tailings facility is fully permitted. We have another 4 years of capacity there. The plant is obviously permitted. It's under great care and maintenance. Mandalay is doing a fantastic job maintaining that plant. It's about a $2.5 million spend a year just to put that on care and maintenance. So, no, it's that plant was built back in 1995 by Floor Daniel. I know the guy that built it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and speaking of projects, all projects cost money. You said here even on care and maintenance it costs $2.5 million a year. Can you just speak a little bit about where Equus is at from a balance sheet perspective?
For sure. We just did a raising last month. We've got $4 million in the treasury. That should permit us to drill approximately 7,000 to 8,500 meters of diamond drilling, and also carry out our both our resource estimation, which is done in Perth, which will be done in Perth, and our restart study. So we've got plenty of cash to get some runs on the board with some fantastic exploration results.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really should take you. So it sounds like that'll really take you through getting the resource calculation.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, the resource calculation is due the end of October this year. So we're talking about 2 months.
Oh, so it should really carry you there and a little bit more, in fact.
For sure. We're looking at to, the end of the first quarter, 2021.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Damien, in closing, because these interviews are meant to be short and sharp, are there any closing thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I suppose the main one, Greg, is we feel like there is a lot of underexplored and unexplored potential on the Surabaya property, which is in itself very large. We feel very confident that we're going to be able to put sufficient resources together to justify the restart of the mine and the path line to that restart. We're not talking several years, we're talking 2022. What the investor will get by investing with Equus is exposure to a high grade, a high silver and gold grade epithermal deposit, which generally can produce very good margins. There's a lot of support in the local region for that mine to be back up in production. That the nearby town was about 80% of its revenues were based from the mine. There's a lot of high-level government support to get that mine back up and running. And we're very confident that we can do it.
Damien, fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. It really sounds exciting, and please stay in touch.
Thanks very much, Greg. Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.